Welcome, my friends. Well, there is stunning news coming from Disney over this past weekend. A proxy battle has erupted between Disney and activist shareholder Nelson Peltz. A corporate proxy fight is an effort by an individual or group to gain control of a public company. It is usually initiated by an activist investor. The investor does this by soliciting votes from shareholders. The goal is typically to elect a new board of directors or vote on specific proposals. This is typically done in an effort to change the company's strategic direction or management. A proxy fight can be a hostile takeover attempt. But it can also be a friendly attempt to effect change within the company. Disney's board recently sought out former CEO Bob Iger to return as CEO. Apparently, other senior Disney management people were concerned about CEO Bob Chapek's management of the company. Chapek caught completely off guard by the news. But how might the situation unfold? What does it mean for the economy? And what does it mean for the future of the United States? But before we get into all of that, please press the like button and leave us a comment below. We would love to hear from you. Please subscribe and hit the bell icon so that you are notified of upcoming videos when they are released. Activist investor Nelson Peltz plans to mount a proxy fight for a seat on Disney's board. For those of you not familiar, Peltz is founding partner of Trian Fund Management. Disney offered Peltz a role as a board observer. But they demanded that Peltz sign a standstill agreement, which basically means sit down and shut up. Peltz declined that. Having Peltz as a board observer is like saying to Whitney Houston, "You can join the band, but you are not allowed to sing." Disney already knew that Peltz would reject this offer. So, why is this happening? Peltz acquired his Disney stock position when Bob Chapek was CEO. And he probably had a plan to replace him with another candidate that Peltz already had in mind. That would have been a reasonable plan for an activist shareholder. But the situation changed when Disney fired Chapek and rehired former CEO Bob Iger. Peltz and Trian had probably been working on that plan for many months. They were probably just waiting for the perfect time to build a bigger stock position. So, Trian's work developing its plan somewhat went to naught when Disney suddenly replaced Chapek with Iger. So, at that time the firm should have regrouped. And they should have developed a different approach. One which took into account the new circumstances. A new plan should not have included opposition to Iger. However, Trian says it is not opposing Iger as CEO now. Trian initially opposed Iger returning as Disney CEO. Trian also published a presentation making its case. In proxy fight presentations, each side uses the facts and data to paint a picture that benefits them. But often those claims do not withstand scrutiny. For example, Trian takes issue with Disney's total shareholder return under Iger. For Disney, that was 270%. That compares to 330% for the S&P 500 over the same time. I am not sure how that compares to the industry overall. But if the entire industry returns were more favorable to Trian, they would have used those. If you torture the data long enough, it will confess to anything, said British economist Ronald Coase. So, Trian can probably get the data to say that Bob Iger was a bad CEO for Disney. Trian also claims that Iger's decision to acquire Fox was a disaster. Honestly speaking, it was a terrible decision in retrospect. But Iger's decisions to acquire other companies were highly successful. Pixar, Marvel, and Lucasfilm. Together those acquisitions have grossed Disney more than $33.8 billion at the global box office. Not to mention billions more in merchandise and theme park extensions. All this criticism of proxy fight tactics and strategy aside, I think that Peltz should be on the board of Disney. He is a large shareholder. He has a strong track record of creating value through operational excellence and strategic and capital allocation decisions. Peltz is not going to be the most valuable director for certain creative decisions. Like deciding who should star in the next blockbuster Disney movie. Or which rides should be built at the entertainment parks. But the board relies on management for those insights. But Peltz will be a valuable board member in areas that could truly benefit Disney. Financial analysis on the various strategic and capital allocation opportunities available to Disney. And advising the board on which decisions would be best for shareholders. Peltz can also be a valuable director in financial matters. Cutting operating costs. And improve margins. That is something Disney could use. And Peltz would probably be good friends with Bob Iger. But it is extremely difficult to sell large institutional investors on changes like this. Especially to get them to vote against the board of an iconic company like Disney. And harder still now that Disney has just removed its CEO. And replaced him with a respected prior CEO. And replaced its chairperson. And recently settled with another top-tier activist, Third Point. Third Point actually had a lot of the same suggestions Trian is making. The big shareholders want to give this new team at least a year. They need time to work on their plan before supporting more change at the company. If you recall from November, Disney abruptly fired CEO Bob Chapek. Disney chose to rehire Bob Iger as chief executive. Disney did not provide a spokesperson to comment on the changes. Chapek also did not respond with any comments. Iger has agreed to be the Disney CEO until the end of 2024. Iger tells sources that he has been consistently hearing complaints from his former colleagues this year. Chapek's leadership style and his decision to pull budgetary power away from Disney's creative executives, according to people familiar with the matter. Chapek's plan to move 2,000 Disney employees from California to Florida was a huge bone of contention. Employees felt that the forced move demonstrated a level of callousness toward employees' lives. This was especially antithetical to Disney's family-friendly culture. Disney had about 190,000 employees at the end of Q3. Just to put that in perspective, Google has 174,000 employees. Meta has 87,000 employees, prior to the planned layoff of 11,000 people. And Twitter had 7,500 employees before Elon Musk announced a 50% layoff. Like many companies, Disney reported disappointing Q3 earnings. And who did they blame? You guessed it, the usual whipping boy, weakening macroeconomic conditions. I think that Wall Street analysts are getting tired of hearing that. Shares of Disney fell sharply after the disappointing Q3 earnings call. Disney's streaming service Disney Plus lost $1.47 billion in Q3. But we should note that Disney Plus has accumulated 100 million subscribers in just 3 years since its inception. By way of comparison, Netflix took 20 years to build a subscriber base of 220 million. But the streaming business is overcrowded and fragmented. As you probably already heard, other large media and entertainment companies have made job cuts this year. Warner Brothers, Discovery, Netflix, HBO Max. Disney has traditionally been a very well-managed company. And, despite its losses, Disney Plus has shown excellent growth. On the other hand, I would say that Disney has a lot of moving parts. Theme parks are just getting back on their feet after the pandemic. But have you checked entry prices to Disney theme parks lately? They are sky high. And I really wonder whether they are pricing out average American families. Disney does need to rationalize the financial picture and bring its earnings in line with stock valuation. But given the fragmentation of the streaming industry, consolidation must take place. So, Disney needs to decide whether it wants to be a buyer or a seller in that space. Given Disney's vast library of titles and ownership of ESPN, I would say that it needs to be a buyer. And, Warner Brothers Discovery needs to find a buyer. I would say that Disney needs to get its share price and earnings up so that it can be something of a consolidator in the streaming space. Hopefully for Disney, this newly discovered financial discipline will help to get them where they need to be. Despite all of that so far, soaring inflation and Fed tightening persist. And the United States is teetering on the brink of a recession. A growing number of companies are cutting their payrolls. Most CEOs believe that a recession is coming and want to prepare their companies for it. So, people are feeling uneasy about the security of their jobs. Consumers are pulling back on discretionary spending. Corporate marketers are cutting back on ad spending, especially online. And ad spending is the lifeblood of most big tech companies. It is not just Twitter. Many Silicon Valley companies are gearing up for recession with layoffs. Big tech firms have already announced many hiring freezes and layoffs so far. But, what do you think? Please leave us a comment below and hit the like button. We would love to hear from you. Please subscribe and hit the bell icon so that you are notified of upcoming videos when they are released. Please share this video on social media. Thank you for watching.